My friends, please welcome Kimberly Peirce, Ryan Phillippe. I mean, the story leading up to this film is, I mean, it was a documentary. You thought it might have been a documentary at first when you were putting this together?
Well, I knew I wanted to write about the soldiers and what they were experiencing, why they were signing up, what happened to them in combat and coming back. So I just started interviewing them all over the country. And then my little brother signed up. So I was hearing it very much firsthand from him. In a way, it started as a documentary, but it became very clear that it was going to be best told as a fiction.
What happens in the family when your brother announces to a family, guess where I'm going?
It's fascinating. My mother said, you know, that she always kind of dreaded this because I was born in the late 60s. And she said, you know, if you had been a boy and we were going to have a draft, she was like, I was going to leave the country. And, you know, now this is happening. And she asks him not to do it because she's scared for him, you know, obviously to get killed or wounded. But what can you do? Your kids have the right to sign up. So it was really very intense for my sister, my mother, and myself.
You know, when you make a film that talks about a war that's currently happening, there's a whole host of other questions, you know, that come with that decision. I mean, as an actor, do you talk to your friends? Do you talk to your family and say, I'm thinking about taking this role?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know what anyone else's process is, but for me, you want to tell a unique story. It starts with the script, and then I knew who was directing the film and was a big fan of what Kim had done previously. And, you know, I like the idea of taking risk, man. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, you know. It's like I don't want to end up in this cycle of doing bland, you know, uninteresting. I like things that push buttons and challenge people, and depending on, regardless of where you stand politically, you want to tell this story because it's so relevant and it's so full of complication.
But you know, we live in a headline culture, so the moment you star or you direct a picture that deals with a subject like this, that's the headline. People
Bring it on.
Read beyond
Bring it
yeah?
on. You know, that's how I feel.
Yeah. Joe Strummer said an artist's #1 job is to be of their time. Is it important for you to tell this story during the war now?
Well, for me, it was important to tell it as soon as possible. Meaning, I was living through it myself. It was like a daily concern of mine, my brother's welfare. And then as I was interviewing all these soldiers, I just wanted to tell it, you know, as quickly as possible, just because it was so moving to me.
What's neat about your character, man, is that you're a soldier and you're a hero, and you lead your troop, and then all of a sudden you come home and there's a switch where you say, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's this great scene where you and your best friend in the film have a fight, and you call him on his idea that this is an unwinnable war. Or at least the way we're doing it. Right. And I wondered, in your conversations with the soldiers when you were getting, you know, prepared for this role, when was that innocence lost? Because a lot of them joined post 9/11 thinking they were doing this for this reason, and then you're getting the sense that at a certain point, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. Did you get a sense of how long they're there before, for some of them, their attitude starts to change?
Well, I mean, you noticed. Specifically, there was Afghanistan and then there was Iraq. I mean, I felt a big shift between those two. And all that stuff came directly from soldiers. I was most interested in the patriotic soldiers. Why were they changing their mind? And we couldn't get into a debate whether this war is right or wrong, but what we could do is have two guys who were patriots call each other out on what their logic was, that was the best way to do it. You know, that you're over there and you're not really fighting a war so much that's the war that you went to fight, that, like he says, it's not happening in the desert, it's happening in the bedrooms, it's happening in the hallways. That's why many of the soldiers say that it's unwinnable.
It's oddly, it's a family film.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this movie is about the dynamic of a family.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the key, the heart of the film are those relationships, and also about putting your life together when you come back from the most horrific of experiences. I think that's a huge part of it. And, you know, these guys are falling apart in various ways, and certainly my character, who thinks he has it completely together and completely figured out, realizes he doesn't. And I think then the imprint and the impact of war is indelible, and it's a forever scar that stays forever. And I think that that's something that we have to think about when these people do come back. In Vietnam, people were treated really terribly, and, you know, whether or not you are for or this war in any regard, it's these men and women are over there just doing what they're told, you know.
It's simplistic to say this is the next Vietnam. It's obviously not the next Vietnam. However, there are similarities that people, even with the way, you know, people are reacting to soldiers even early. I mean, they are very much about supporting the troops, but they're getting the sense that this is not what Afghanistan was. When those soldiers are relating their stories back to you, are you getting a sense that they're starting to feel like they're not getting appreciated the way they should be?
Well, they certainly are getting appreciated better than they were in Vietnam. But yeah, I think a lot of soldiers are coming home in America and realizing that the war is sort of going on in the background. That's like something that most of them said. And that probably has to do with the fact that it's a volunteer army, so it is naturally a smaller group of the society fighting it than you had when you had a draft.
And also, I think there's been an intentional move to that end where, you know, the stories about the war and about what's happening go further and further in the background or replaced by, you know, stories that aren't about the war. And I think that happens in a lot of countries where, you know, we tend to hide and not focus on, you know, for instance, the stop-loss policy is something that very few Americans have heard about, but it's happened to 81,000 plus people, you know, but I think there's an intent behind that that disguise and that kind of keeping that information from the public.
The funniest line in the film, and I don't know if it was intended to be funny, was when you said "fuck the president," and I think it's and the Canadian audience obviously is going to eat that up.
Yeah.
And I just wondered how that played out in other places across America.
Yeah, Kim would know better than I, but I loved saying it, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Did you, like, you did it, and she's like, no, we got it? No, let me try that again.
Yeah.
I got one in me. Closer.
You know, I've taken it around the country. I've been to like 10 cities so far, and they all react to it, I mean, very well. At first, I think in America there's a little bit of a hush, like, I can't believe he said that, more so than you would get here. But the Latin audience in Miami, they clapped like really loudly. You know what I mean? But I don't know if they were just like, you know, wanting to be loud and enthusiastic all the way through. San Diego, which was a military town, they, you know, applauded for it, so.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly well within the context of the guy's situation, too. It's not just kind of thrown out there.
A gratuitous moment.
Yeah, right.
Your brother in a war, instant messaging with him back and forth. I mean, it's such a unique war these days because you can just be there. He can turn his MacBook around and you can experience what's happening.
It's fascinating. They actually set up computers everywhere they go. They're forward operating bases. And I was able to IM with him and other soldiers really from when he landed in Kuwait all the way through Iraq. So you're in constant communication, and that has a profound effect on the families and the exchange of information. And I also had, you know, said last night that he brought back videos that the soldiers had shot and edited to music. And it's just our awareness of what a soldier goes through is so profound now.
It's not like the days where we'd have to wait for newsreels of film to come back. You can see this happening right now from the soldier. I mean,
yeah, on YouTube, there's soldiers posting videos.
What are the videos called? They're making these movies now? I got my head shot off?
What do you mean?
Like they're taping cameras to the side of the tanks and all that, and then they're editing their own film.
Exactly. Yeah, they put it on sandbags. They wire it in the Humvee. They put it. Actually, I have a bunch of videos where they put it on the gun turret, so it's actually bouncing as the gun is firing. Put it on the ground, so you're seeing a firefight, like you just see like a guy, you know, boots run by, and then you hear that there's a firefight going on.
You think of Boys Don't Cry, you think of this film. Do you ever sit back on one of these heavy dialogue moments and go, I need to make a romantic comedy. I need to lighten this up, right?
I'm writing a romantic comedy.
Yeah. Is it just for therapy? Is that why you're writing it?
No, it's because it's really funny.
What are you doing? You have to keep promoting the film. What are you doing next? You have another project?
Well, I'm really promoting this film for the next month. I finished a film in London called Franklin with Eva Green and this kid Sam Riley, who's going to be an excellent actor.
That's the dude who's in Control, right?
Yeah, he's great.
Fantastic.
So
yeah, and they've described it as Batman meets Magnolia, so I don't know.
That sounds like a therapy film as well.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming in. I appreciate
Absolutely,
your time.
thanks.
Ryan
Thanks
Phillippe,
so
Kimberly
much.
Peirce. Nice to see you. Thank you. Appreciate it. The film is called Stop Loss. March 28th is when you can see it in the theaters. Right when the hour returns, the quest for the Holy Grail begins, and I don't mean the Stanley Cup. We'll be right back.